Welcome back to the channel. Tune in or ghost out. If you are under the age of 28 and you're coming to the realization that isolation is not as bad as people make it seem, then I think you're one step too deep into a journey that's hard to turn back from. It would be easy for me to come on this mic and advocate that it's okay to be totally isolated and that people aren't worth trying, that your state of peace is worth protecting at any cost, even if that means disconnecting from the world around you, because that would justify a lot of the mistakes that I made as I aged. It's no secret that I like my alone time. I am a Call of Duty YouTuber in the year of 2025, but this yearn to be alone and kind of do my own thing has put me in a weird position as I've hit 28. It wasn't always like this. Like many people, it started around COVID when we were all shut inside of our houses. I was a pretty social person. I was into the car scene heavily. I've talked about that before. I drive a stick shift. Like, it's an old BMW. I'm not trying to flex, but I do this. And back in the day, before I had this car and I just had my Acura, the scene was really good down here. I'm in Georgia, so we had probably one of the best car scenes in the South. Like, this isn't even just me saying it. 2010s Georgia car scene was pretty awesome. And if you know about that hot boy lifestyle and the car scene, that was me and my friend group, and it was probably the most fun I've ever had in my life, and it's still a time I look back very fondly on. I'm not saying that we were different, but I don't know. We had friends working on Skylines, like big camber, dark tint, loud cars. If you remember 2010's car scene, you know how it was. But I say that to say that I wasn't really always somebody who craved isolation consciously. Even during those times, I slowly saw myself going towards that lane more often, but I wouldn't pay it too much attention because I thought it was just a healthy balance of always being around people and craving some alone time. But even before the lockdowns happened, I remember really liking alone time, and I had this habit of just taking really long nighttime drives. This is like the generic simp car guy like theme, like, oh, I just want a passenger princess to take late night rides with the music on. I would just do it by myself, but the peace you feel driving down a highway completely empty in the middle of the night, like 1 a.m., and the only thing that are on besides the headlight are the bright JVC blue lights from the head unit. Really JDM, if you know, it's really JDM. And then I would always stop by a random Waffle House just by myself. Don't even get a booth, just sit at the bar, order like a waffle, just waste time. And at that time, I didn't feel like I was actually wasting any time. If anything, it was like a weird sense of peace. At that time, 1 a.m., everybody's asleep, so I didn't even have to dodge calls. I didn't have to be antisocial. I just existed. Even at my height of socializing, I was always someone who was painfully aware of everything. How I was breathing, how I was standing, how I was talking, if I was talking too much. And I'm just a naturally anxious person. You probably picked up on that a while ago. But managed isolation at that time did wonders. But when the lockdown hit, wasn't really managed at that point. I went from having an outlet to my work life to having nothing but my work life to rely on. I was an essential worker at that time, so I was still able to go to work. They even gave me a piece of paper at one time to present to the police if I was caught going to work and they questioned me. Crazy times indeed. But I literally did nothing but go to work, come home, join Discord, play games, go to sleep, come home, repeat for the entire time. And I remember thinking, like, I could cut out the job part and just get unemployment, but at that time I made the call to not do that. But if you remember lockdown unemployment where they were paying people to stay home, it was kind of crazy. But aside from all the bad that time brought, I was still able to drive my car, and I drove a lot. Nobody's on the road. Police were even watching the roads. It was a good time for people who were still going outside, and I maximized the amount of cruises that I could take. I was taking the long way home every day from work. There was countless times that I ate dinner in my car. I had a place to go to. I had a place to rest my head, but there was nothing more peaceful than just taking the car to nowhere. And this was around the time that I realized that isolation isn't really what they make it out to be. I know and I understand that loneliness for many people is a burden and it makes people feel disconnected. And with the problems we have going on right now, we probably don't need more of it. But from the perspective that I hold, it was so dangerous because it was so easy to enjoy. As somebody who used to just contemplate every aspect of my life, and even at my most social, I would snap out of whatever I was doing in the group to think, like, I have to go back to work. I have to do stuff. Like, this is not gonna last forever. And I got into a habit of expecting the next moment. And instead of enjoying the current, I was always looking forward to the tasks that I didn't want to do or did want to do. If I was at work, I would be excited to go home and play games. But if I was playing games, I would be just counting the hours until I had to go to sleep to get ready for work again. And when I put the keys in the car and just drove straight, I didn't think about anything. I thought about what song I wanted to listen to next to playlist this mosaic masterpiece of life that I was creating. But never once did my mind cross into, I have work tomorrow. It didn't matter. It didn't matter that I had work. I would sit outside in that car from 1 to 4 a.m. thinking everything. I definitely thought about all the things that I did wrong. I definitely thought about a lot of the awkward pauses and just the times that I may have looked dumb or weird or been the butt of the joke, but I also just remembered experiences. And I think that's what kept me hanging on through that time of separation. A lot of people took it very hard, but for me, it was kind of awesome. And as the world opened back up, I kind of always kept that peace, that I can always escape in the car and find peace on the road. But as the real world started opening up, nothing really changed for me. I still was just going to work and going home. I was in that rat race cycle. So when it opened up and things got crowded again and the roads got busy and life just kind of got worse in a way, I started enjoying alone time more and more and more. And that's where the danger really started. I was enjoying it so much that I was being actively disconnected from the world around me, while at the same time feeling the most connected to myself than I ever did, ever. And that's why I say, when you take that first step into realizing that isolation is not that bad, you've kind of gone too far. It's because it's so hard to turn back. While I can look at all the positive things that, being to myself and kind of learning about myself has brought in me, I really have no care for anyone's opinion on me. I know that's easier said, harder practiced, but even right now, I'm not where I want to be in life, but I know where I want to be. I kind of have some weird mapped out plan of how to get there, and I dropped the fear of trying to achieve it. Instead, I actively put myself into a position to try to achieve it. But when I stepped back and focused on my own life, I stopped really caring about the things that make you normal. And I don't think that was such a good thing. Well, it was a good thing, but it was bad in terms of having a social life. I'm not putting my isolation on other people. That would be not fair, and I feel like a very big cop-out. But when I chose to take those car rides, and when I chose to go on walks by myself, and when I decided to be more focused on my life and what I wanted and who I was as a person, I realized I had to cut out a lot of things that I was using as a relief for something. I cut out a lot of my social media. I talked about in one of my first videos, I think it was my first video, where I went on a digital detox. And I played around with the idea before. I've talked about how I have a binge habit where I'll delete it and then download it and repeat that cycle with Instagram, with dating apps, with, just anything. When I decided to take a digital detox back in June or July, that was the first serious time that I tried to address the underlying problem of it. I realized that while I thought I was bigger than the program, that idea of FOMO really did plague me. I did want to know what people were doing because I myself was pulling away. To me, it came with a lot of burdens. And every time I did have that fear of FOMO and hung out with certain people, maybe I didn't have the best friend group, but it would always end the same. I just feel like my social battery is drained, that I didn't really even have that much fun. And it wasn't really because of the people. A lot of the times it's the activity. Usually it's going out to eat, or it's going somewhere that has drinks, or just hanging out in a random parking lot. And I don't know, while I did choose to get more isolated, the life that I remember when I was socializing was better than what was around today. I talk about the car scene so fondly because now it's pretty much shut down. The police shut down all the meets. All the meets are corporate meets. There's no street meets, pause. And that loose, free culture that once was there doesn't exist anymore. Everything's been commodified, just like every other aspect of life. And I know, not gonna talk about capitalism, but at a certain point, you understand that isolation is not the best thing, and it would be good to have a friend group, and it would be good to do all these things. But then you also realize that if you don't participate in a lot of things, or if you don't have a friend group that matches what you're trying to move on to, it's really hard to facilitate that. I feel like I'm very lucky that I have 2 solid friends outside of my, family and cousins and stuff. And I feel like that's enough. I'm not really craving a whole bunch of new friends. I'm not in a position in my life to lust over women like I did when I was younger. And if anything, I'm actively trying to reduce any urges that I have and practice more discipline in this section of my life that I did in the past. And while I understand how detrimental isolation can be and how it can spiral out of control very quickly, it's hard to notice that while while you're actively going through the motions of it, because everything all at once does feel like a lot to deal with. And I think that's why many men feel left behind as it is. You're dealing with a terrible job market, probably the worst dating scene in history, and just constant bad headlines everywhere. It's hard to address what you should be tackling first. And if you do keep up with the rat race and you don't have a sense of self, it's easy to get distracted and lost in everything that happens, and you just feel like you're dealing with a million things a minute. But when you step back, tell yourself you're not going to be a consumer, a user, or a chaser, and take the time to improve on yourself and your worldview and understand why the things that are happening, it kind of becomes addicting, because I think as men we're told to go against the current and just kind of push back on life as it happens. But I've found so much more success going with the ebbs and the flows of life, and socializing for the sake of socializing with no goal for me really wasn't great. I did things I didn't care about, I met people I didn't care about, I slept with people I didn't care about, but focusing on myself and adding structure to my life really did improve it. It did come with a cost. Like, all the changes that I made really did push me away with a lot of my other friends. The more I stepped away from the things that I didn't even like but did, the more I realized that I didn't have a lot in common with the people around me, and it sucked. But now I'm closer to my family than ever. I have a very good relationship with my family, actually, which I'm proud of, because when I was, the 2010s, as much as I like to remember it as like great, I did just have a really bad like anger problem. I always had something on my chest. I was always huffing and puffing back then, I remember. But like I said, once I found those drives, a lot of the things that bothered me or messed with my brain or made me angry, I really was able just to sit down and sort them out. I wasn't always this calm person, but even with all the benefits I've gained from isolation, I know this can't last forever. That's kind of why I wanted to have this talk and go over my history with isolation, because I think starting this new year, I want to reach out to the outside world more. While it is comfortable to be alone and do your own thing whenever you want, it does feel kind of selfish. I talk about how I like community a lot, and if I'm not pouring into my own community actively, then I'm nothing but a hypocrite. I miss how people used to be good neighbors to each other. I miss how people used to look up and wave at each other. And while I don't yearn for more friends or a relationship, closing myself off to the world prevents anything good from happening just as much as that prevents anything bad from happening. I've learned a lot in this year. I've learned a lot about myself, and this has been a journey that's gone on longer than just this year. But with the career switch and the pivot in my life, while that isolation put me through a lot of hard times, it also unlocked parts of me and a mentality that I was nowhere near even 3 years ago. It made me test who I was, not even as a man, but as a human being. While I wasn't isolated in terms of being in a box for 16 hours a day like some prison, it led me to think about thinking. I'm not saying I'm a philosopher, but it led me down some paths that I never would think about. It let me read works of people that I never thought I would even have time to read or have the will to read. One of my favorite quotes comes from James Salter. "There is no complete life. There's only fragments. We are born to have nothing, to have it pour through our hands." I would have never known about things like this or writings this detailed if I never searched for the things that I actually cared about. And while I didn't have a lot of purpose, and while I'm still looking for actual purpose, the road to purpose is not one that just happens without you putting some effort into it. For some people it is. Some people have divine destiny and they just end up where they're supposed to be, and life works out that way. But I feel like for a lot of us, if we were just to look a little deeper in ourselves, it wouldn't be that hard to find. And now that I've done a lot of looking and found a lot of answers, I think it's time for me to open myself up back to the world, because I don't want to be isolated my entire life. Like I said, I'm not looking for a new friend group or even more friends. I love the support system I have now, my family, the two bros, and a few more acquaintances. But I don't know, you kind of think to yourself, like, do I want kids? Do I want to start that new chapter of my life? And while I don't have any like crushes, loves, or anything right now, just kind of like a single guy winging it, I understand that the more selfish I become and the more isolated I get, the harder it's going to be to introduce anyone else into my life in the future. If I don't actively work on that now, I don't know what that's going to look like, and I don't really want to find out what that's going to look like. So while isolation and, alone time is amazing, honestly, if you're young, keep a friend group. Make sure you talk to your friends and keep good friends, but make sure you also learn yourself and learn how to be alone, but never go too deep into being alone. We are meant to talk to others, have communities, and share our ideas. I know the world feels a little distorted right now in the way that looks, but the only people that can change how that life looks for you is yourself. It sucks to get rejected. It sucks to keep opening yourself up and be left empty-handed or short-handed, but I feel like even with all all the letdowns, it's worth it in the end, because that's kind of like the whole point of why we're here. I don't know, I feel like I'm just rambling at this point, but I kind of want to have more of these on the channel. We've been covering a lot of, finances, and we'll get back into that, but sometimes we just gotta have like an honest conversation, and the more we have these, I'll get better. I felt like I rambled a lot here and just talked, but this was kind of therapeutic for me. If you made it this far into the video, how has it been for you? Have you maintained a social group, a friend group, or have you started drifting into your own life and kind of just being by yourself a lot? I'm interested to hear how your experience is going. If you resonated with the video, let me know. If you haven't already, like and subscribe to join the thread. And with that being said, thank you for tuning in. Until next time.
I don't wanna ever lose you. You know that I got so